Expert Factory is now open for business. Sound the whistle.
Hey there, everybody. Were you looking for a podcast that helps you do everything just a little bit easier? Well, you've come to the right place. This is the Expert Factory, and I am Jim the Podcast Sherpa on the side hustle from my side hustle of Too Many Podcasts, which you may listen to on Wednesdays. Check it out if you haven't heard it. This week's show, we're talking to a lady named Kourtney Frazier, and she hosts a podcast called The Kourtney Show. And it's different. It's about her living with a neuromuscular disease. And it's really fascinating. I thought that she was a really great lady, and when I was looking for volunteers to speak on subjects for this show, she said that I'd like to do something about emergency funds. And I thought that was a great idea. So we will hear from Kourtney, and you'll notice in her story, there are definitely times where you may need an emergency fund at hand, that's for sure. Especially some of the things that she's gone through in her life. I'm sure it's very common with other people too. So it's always good to have that little extra something to fall back on. Just a reminder that today's podcast is being brought to you by Audible, and you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. All right, we'll do one more message, and then let's listen to Kourtney talk about emergency funds.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Jim so much for having me on this podcast today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kourtney, and I have my own podcast called The Kourtney Show, where I talk about exercise and basic life challenges with a neuromuscular disease. However, today we're going to be talking about the importance of having an emergency fund and how to start one. I want to share, I recently finished my bachelor's degree in business finance from Southern New Hampshire University. Personal finance is something that is actually what interested me in pursuing finance as a major. An emergency fund is super important to have. You just never know when an emergency is gonna come up. In my most recent experience, I live in California in the San Francisco Bay Area in the North Bay. So we recently had wildfires that were coming through, and a lot of people in my area were evacuated from their homes and had to find somewhere else to go. Luckily, I was not evacuated and was unaffected by the fires other than, well, my job was evacuated. So actually, that was something too. It did have an effect on me, even though it wasn't like my home or anything. I couldn't work for a couple days, so it was a good thing that I had my emergency funds. Because I lost a couple days of a paycheck. And then also, we've experienced power outages as well. So, losing food, having to buy food at other places, and things like that. And you never know when an emergency like that is gonna come up. And that's a pretty major one. There's other reasons to have an emergency fund as well, which really affects everyone. Just a couple things. If your car breaks down and you need to fix it, if anything in your home breaks, like your shower or like the bathroom or anything like that, and you need to go out and fix it, then it's better to have an emergency fund than be like, oh no, what am I gonna do? I'm not able to fix this because I can't pay for it right now. That's a lot of why I think that everyone should have an emergency fund. A couple other things too. Last year, I lost a job that I had been working at, and you just never know when that's gonna happen. And then this year, I decided, I found another job very quickly, actually. But I was working another job this year that I did not like at all. But luckily, I had an emergency fund saved up, and I was able to quit that job and Again, I found another job within 2 weeks. Just a couple other reasons to have an emergency fund. And then I just want to emphasize, it seems like a lot to just get started with it, but don't wait, because you never know when things come up. And then the sooner you start, the more that you can save. One thing that I think helps with my mindset is just knowing that you never know when something like that is gonna happen, where you're gonna need access to an emergency fund. What got me started with actually building one and everything and being like, okay, it's time, I need to start, was in 2017 when those wildfires happened. The place I was working was on fire, and I didn't know if I was gonna have a job to go back to. I didn't know what was gonna happen then. With that, I was very lucky, and the work that I was doing still paid me for that whole time that we were out of work, but I didn't even know if I had a job to go back to for 3 weeks, and it was a very stressful time. Then I lost my job. I never expected that to happen. And I had health problems come up. It was a very difficult time for me. After that, that's when I started really focusing on building up an emergency fund. There's a couple different ways to start building up an emergency fund. What I personally like to do is I like to have a separate savings account that I transfer like anything for my emergency fund into. It's a completely separate account from, like, I have a checking and savings account, and then at a separate bank I have another savings account which I call my emergency fund. And the reason for that is, for me, it's actually harder to just pull that money out. Like, I have to really think about it, because my emergency fund is through an online savings account. And if I want to transfer any money out of it, it's going to take a couple days to get into my checking account. I have to really think about it before deciding to withdraw any funds from it. Another option, if you don't want an extra savings account to deal with, even just keeping like cash on hand. I don't recommend this method because it would be really easy for someone to just like break in and steal or whatever, and then whatever you saved up, you are completely out of. Completely up to you, but I definitely think that everyone should have an emergency fund, at least start one. And what an emergency fund is just money that you set aside that's earmarked for emergencies. Okay, and then to start building up this emergency fund, what I started doing, I was making $12 an hour working part-time. And I just started putting $5 from every paycheck into my account. And even at that time, it was kind of difficult for me, just with living expenses. I made sure to transfer that money every single payday. And it doesn't matter how much you do. It could be $5, it could be $1. As long as you start somewhere, you're getting started. And then something that I found really fun are savings challenges. I like those because there's something about like the psychology of it, or something that when I'm telling myself is a challenge, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to do this, and it's fun for me. If you just Google savings challenges, a bunch of different things come up for you to do. You could try not spending any money for a month, or I only did it for a week. I couldn't last for a full month, to be completely honest. You could try not buying soda for however long, and the money that you would be spending on like that soda or whatever, you are putting into that savings account. And if you're doing that, then you're saving two things, because it's better for your health if you're not drinking as much soda as you were before, if you're someone like me that drinks a lot of soda, and you're saving a bunch of money, and it helps you because you see how much money you're saving by not buying that stuff as it's going into that savings. However you do that savings challenge, or however you start that emergency fund, just make it fun. Have fun with it. One thing that I really like to do too is I've seen like printouts on Pinterest that say savings challenges, and then it has like a little square that you cross off for however many times, like every time. So like it has an amount in each square, and every time you put that amount that's in a square, you cross off that square, put the amount into your savings, and then with that, you're working towards building that savings up. And on that printout, it usually says how much you're going to be saving with it. And I find it really fun. Some of them are weekly, like you put X amount of dollars into savings weekly, or monthly or bi-weekly, however it's set up. And then the goal is to get all squares crossed off, like you're playing bingo kind of. I find it fun to do like the rows first or the columns first, exactly like bingo. I don't know, maybe I'm weird. And that's what makes it fun for me. So much fun with these challenges, actually, that I started my own Facebook group called Savings Challenges, where sometimes I'll do challenges. In January, I'm going to be starting one, not for an emergency fund. However, I'm going to Disney World, so I'm going to be starting a savings challenge for that. If anyone would like to join me, please come join our group. We have a lot of fun in it. And then just make it fun. That's really the most important thing to do with anything, especially when it comes to saving money, is to make it fun. Also, like, look at how much you're saving every week. It's very cool to watch your savings grow and watch, if you have it in a savings account, and watching that interest grow as well is really cool. I hope this helps some of you. And again, Jim, I want to thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, there you have it. That's Kourtney, and she is the host of The Kourtney Show. We've got a link to her podcast in the show notes if you want to check it out. She'll be coming out with more episodes during the course of the year. I'd like to thank her very much. And don't forget to subscribe to this show and follow us on social media. If you want to follow us, it just takes one word. Sherpalution, Sherpalution. You can use the word Sherpalution to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. And also our new website, Sherpalution.com. We're working away on that, and you can get information on this podcast and also my other podcast, Too Many Podcasts. Anything that I do, it'll end up on that website. Nice and easy, one-stop shop. I won't have to ask you to follow 8 million things. It'll be all right there for you. Hope you enjoy it. In case you're wondering where else you can hear this show, you can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where, if you can, please leave a nice review. Thank you very much. Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. Next week, looking really forward to it, we're heading to the kitchen with my friend, Kc Gonzalez. As you may or may not know, Kc is the host of his own podcast called Chef Salty Pork, and he's really talented, and he was also an early guest on the Too Many Podcasts podcast to talk about his show. His show is a lot of fun, and if you want to be a better cook, check him out. And you know when Kc's behind the mic, it's always an interesting show. So until next time, let this factory make an expert out of you. Bye, everybody.
The podcast is now over. Please disperse. Viva la Sherpalution!